There are 5 things you should consider that you must know about divorce if you're a man getting divorced and you own a business. So there's these top 5 things. You have to know these things or you're going to be in big trouble once a divorce gets started. So number 1 is file first. Whether you're a business owner, whether you're wealthy, whether you're broke, whatever it is, filing first is key. Whoever files first is going to set the tone. They're going to control the narrative. They're going to control the words that are in the documents. They're going to decide the timeline. They'll decide when the case gets filed. You may have been talking about a divorce with your wife and she could have filed a month ago, you don't even know yet. So you want to look out for those kind of things. Also, filing first means you can control what court orders are going to get signed without a hearing. Yeah, there's these court orders, they're called ex parte orders, which is Latin for without a hearing, ex parte. And the court will sign a temporary order that could freeze your bank accounts, could control custody, parenting time, child support, who has access to the house, who is required to pay what bills or whatever's going on. Those things get done at the beginning of a divorce case without a hearing, without notice to the other person, and then it's a court order, it's not a request. Now you have a court taking a position in your divorce case and doing a court order, and you don't even know there's a divorce case yet. So you don't want to avoid all that. You definitely want to avoid all those things and get something filed first. So that's number 1. Number 2 is you need to be aware that there's full disclosure. If you're a business owner, you're going to be required to look at what this business is worth, what the cash flow is, what the income is, how the income's determined. That's all required as part of a divorce case. There's not going to be any like saying, well, she doesn't have to worry about it, it's my business, or whatever that might look like. Won't happen. You own a business, you're self-employed, there's going to be a disclosure process through any divorce case. I'm a divorce attorney. I work here in Metro Detroit area in Michigan. Certainly how it is under Michigan law, it has to be full disclosure by both people, both you and your spouse. So if you're the owner of the business, that's going to mean some business records are going to have to be produced, and profit and loss statements and cash flow verification of things, and some due diligence is always going to be required of any divorce. So you want to be ahead of that, be aware of it, have a heads up on it, and start working on it. If those records aren't in the best order or aren't what they should be, you want to start thinking about that and looking at those things early on so that it's not a surprise once your divorce case gets going. So that's number 2, is the full disclosure. Number 3 is valuing of assets. If you own a home, if you own a second home, you need to agree on what those are worth, or they're going to have to be appraised. And usually the point with value of assets, if you're a business owner, is that oftentimes the business you own is the most valuable asset you own and the most valuable asset you have in a divorce case. I know people don't like hearing that. I understand. I'm a business owner. I wouldn't like hearing that if I was getting divorced, because I wouldn't want to have to pay my wife some part of a law firm that I feel like I created and I started and I'm the one working on and she's not involved with. But when I own a business, it's an asset. If I'm an employee and I have no ownership interest, that's different. If I'm somebody working at GM, I have a W-2, I'm a W-2 employee, then that's it. I have no ownership interest. That's not an asset. That job is not an asset. Owning a business is an asset. So then the value of the business becomes an issue in your divorce case, and it's something you end up having to buy your wife out of. Unless there's some exception, like it was separate property because you owned it before you got married and had a prenuptial agreement, or some other reason. But in general, you're getting divorced, you've been married, let's say 20 plus years, and you own your own business, you could expect that that business is gonna have to be valued. Either you two agree on the value, or you end up hiring a business appraiser to figure out the value of the business, and you owe your wife, one way or another, half of the value of that business. So the value of assets can be a big consideration in a divorce with when you're a business owner, because the business can often be the most valuable asset that people have, and then you got to figure out how to cash your wife out of that business because you're going to keep it, it's yours. If your wife has no ownership interest, there's no path where she's going to take your business or she's going to become a part owner or whatever. That's not the deal. But you do owe her for the half the value of it, just like you would owe her half the value of a house, owe her half the value of a savings account, you'd owe her half the value of a retirement account, all those things. Owning a business is the same deal. It doesn't feel like it. You'd say, well, the business is just me. Let's say I have a dental practice and I'm a dentist. I'd say, well, my dental practice doesn't have any value. It's just me. Without me, it wouldn't exist. That doesn't matter. That's not the deal. That's not how it works. I hate to be the one telling you if you're hearing that for the first time, but it's absolute. The business has value. There's no saying because you're the only one doing the work that somehow that doesn't have value. The only business that has no value is if you don't own it. So if you're an employee working somewhere, that's not an asset. That's not anything you have to worry about. But if you own a business, you can bet that business has some value. It always does. So you have to be careful on that. And number 4, top 5 things you need to know about if you're a business owner getting divorced is just the usual kind of things with custody and parenting time, but also child support. Child support can be a big problem with business owners, with someone that's self-employed, because the courts, the lawyers, everyone's always kind of suspicious of business owners. They always think you're hiding things, or your way of calculating how you determine what your income is might be a little at issue, or maybe there's mistakes with how you calculate what your income is. Maybe there's things you're not counting as income that are income. Paying your car insurance, paying your car payment, paying your gas through your business is fine, but it's not like 100% of that is not a business expense. You have some personal use of your vehicle. So things like that come up where there's the money you pay yourself, but then there's also profit sharing, there's business expenses, you might have distributions, other things of value because you're an owner of a business, and those have to be looked at when you're considering what is this person's income for purposes of something like child support or purposes of something like spousal support. Either way, if I need to know what someone's income is and they're a business owner, potentially it's a problem. If I need to know what someone's income is and they're a W-2 employee, gonna be less of a problem. They might make different amounts from year to year, but I'm not in this world of, well, they have an ownership in something, and are they paying themselves other money, or are they paying expenses? Is a business paying something on their behalf that really counts as income? And looking at tax returns and profit and loss and trying to figure out what's a business expense, what isn't, what's a personal expense. You got to look at all that stuff. So when you're calculating child support, that's another tough one if you own a business and you're getting divorced. And then number 5 on top 5 things you should know as a business owner when you're going through a divorce, number 5 is privacy. If you own a business, you might not be a public figure, but people know who you are. People know you in your community. You don't want people knowing your personal information, right? You don't want someone to be able to go and they could look in the court records and find out what you make and find out all these things about you. You don't want any of that going on. You would want to have a privacy agreement through your divorce case. How do you do that? Well, number 1, make sure you file first. Then you're controlling what words are in the complaint. You're controlling what personal business of yours is disclosed in the divorce complaint, which is part of the public record. So when I file for divorce and I file a divorce complaint, that document is public record. Anybody who knows how to do it can look it up and read about whatever my wife might have said about me in the divorce complaint. So how do I avoid that? File my own divorce complaint and file first, if I can. But also, once you reach the final agreement and you have all these details on what's going on with your business that you own, what share your wife's gonna get, who's getting which vehicle, who gets what house, who gets what accounts, you don't want all that in the public record where someone can go read it because you're a business owner. So that's one reason to keep all that stuff private. You can do that. You can do a separate property agreement. You can do a settlement agreement that is then a private settlement agreement and is not part of the court record. So you'd have a judgment of divorce in your final documents, but it wouldn't have any details about what you own and what it's worth and all this stuff that you worked out through your divorce. You could have a separate property settlement agreement that would be private, and then you can avoid having all your information in the public domain. So hopefully that helps. Those are the top 5 kind of things you're looking at. If you're a business owner getting divorced, there are nuances, there are considerations, there are things you need to worry about that you might not have to worry about if you're not a business owner. It's just a different world. So I hope that helps.